March was packed, from quirky visual novels to monster slaying marathons and a whole lot of puzzle solving magic. I somehow balance short bursts of completion with massive time sinks. But what's more surprising? The biggest lesson I learned this month wasn't about finishing games, it was about figuring out which one are worth your time and which one just aren't. So let's dive into my March backlog update and see how much of these games left their mark. Without further ado,
Let's get into the intro.
So I started March by playing Impostor Factory. Impostor Factory is a curious little game and it lives in the same universe as To the Moon and Finding Paradise. You probably know this series because I did talk about it and bit by bit I trimmed down on these wonderful games. But this game particularly goes in a different direction, both tonally and thematically. While I didn't find it as being as emotional as the previous titles, there's still something deeply charming about how it connected to the larger narrative arc of the stories. I do not want to go into full details about these games because I do think that you need to experience them to fully understand them. Personally, I do feel like this game is more like a prequel of To the Moon and Finding Paradise, as it ties up together with the characters that are the main characters of the story. So that's all the things that I will be explaining. Other than that, it's that this game has this sci-fi twist this time around, adding a refreshing layer, and it plays with time in interesting ways. Sometimes too clever for its own good, but always ambitious. Clocking under 5 hours to complete this game, it's a quick hit for story game fans. And while it might not stick with you strongly, it's still worth the experience if you follow the series. At the end of the whole game, I didn't feel the same strong emotion by crying and just feeling overwhelmed by the whole emotion, because this game is really trying to tell a different story and make sense of the characters itself. Still, I do believe that it's well worth your time if you are interested in this franchise. I know that they don't really go by the same names in the titles, like you would have To the Moon 1, 2, 3, and 4, but still an excellent series, and I can't wait to pick up the next game from this franchise. What I do like about these games, if you are a completionist or if you're somebody that really likes story-driven games, is that you can finish them in a sitting or two. It's very easy, very digestible, and heartwarming story. Moving next, I wanted to play something a little bit much more involved, so I picked up Monster Hunter Wilds. This game came out not too long ago and it really came with a bang. A lot of people picked it up, played it, and it has a massive player base at the moment still, where a lot of people are involved in it, and for all the good reason. This game is really good. I played Monster Hunter Worlds before, and I really think that Wilds is just as close, if not better, in some areas. Monster Hunter Wilds is exactly what you'd expect from the series. Giant creatures, satisfying combat, and that unmistakable loop of hunt, craft, and repeat. And honestly, I had a blast. Even with some frustrating optimization issues, the game still ran surprisingly well on my RTX 3080 thanks to the FSR and not to the Nvidia DLSS, keeping me mostly between 60 to 120 frames in some areas. But despite the performance hiccups that I had, the core gameplay is addictive as ever. It's still a time sink and I barely scratched the surface with just 18 hours at most. I didn't finish it, but it's one of those games I'll keep dipping into over time, especially when I'm craving that satisfying boss fight and grind loop. The armors are great, the story is quite interesting, and the characters are really welcoming and pleasant. I don't want to give too much details about the story. You know me, I don't like to talk about the story because for me it's a very important element, and oftentimes spoiling any kind of thing about it can really ruin the fun for a lot of people. Still, I really enjoyed it. I think it was much better consolidated compared to Monster Hunter World, and despite not playing Monster Hunter Rise, I had a ton of blast. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think they really nailed it this time around. I think it's much more approachable for anybody who's a newcomer to the series, and rightfully so, it has sold so many copies. This game performed so well on Steam that it broke the chart by being one of the most played and probably most purchased game in 2025. We'll wait and see until GTA 6 is coming out, and then probably we're gonna have a head-to-head combat between the two. But considering that the price is much more affordable than what the rumors are about GTA 6, we will see about that. Very interesting game. I really enjoyed it, but as the others, I had to move on. And the game that I moved on was q.u.q. So, q.u.q caught my eye with its distinct art style and the promise of a short, punchy visual novel experience. On paper, it had everything I usually enjoy: quirky aesthetics, branching story, branching choices, and a tight runtime. But the reality didn't quite deliver. The story quickly spiraled into confusion, and the characters felt underdeveloped, leaving very little emotional impact. By the time I reached the ending, it felt like the narrative had rushed to the finish line without giving it its core ideas room to breathe. I went in expecting a hidden gem, but unfortunately this one didn't stick with me the way I hoped it would. Honestly, I was really disappointed because I did talk highly about this game as I was looking forward for it, and it didn't deliver the landing. Still, that helped me to move on to the next one because I really didn't spend that much time on this game. I think it took me about 5 hours and a half to complete all the 11 achievements by just simply going through several choices that you can pick and drop if you follow a guide quite quickly. But nonetheless, that helped me move and push forward to a game series I really have close to my heart, and that is Trine. Trine was a wonderful return to a series I've always appreciated, and this first entry reminded me exactly why. The physics-based puzzles, the fantasy setting, and the ability to swap between characters mid-level makes it a creative playground that still holds up incredibly well to this day. It's a charm to its simplicity. The combat isn't overly complex, but the way it ties into the puzzle mechanics makes each level feel rewarding. It's one of those games where you just want to play one more level until you suddenly realize it's 2 a.m. A real treat for fans of platformers and whimsical fantasy. What I really like about this game is that it ties in quite a fantastic story that, despite its simplicity and you can simply ignore it and ditch it, it's quite charming, and the characters are very well written, very well narrated, and it ties well together with the rest of the series. So despite having a return to this series, I really enjoyed it. I wanted to complete this game, and I finally did it after spending 17 hours or so in the game. There's some few things that I didn't like when it comes to grinding, especially when you have to pretty much collect every single potion or other collectibles that you can find hidden on the map, which can be a little bit frustrating, but it's much more easier to distinguish as the elements and the contrast is not that difficult to spot. And to be honest, I really think that this game holds up very well for its age from the series, and you can pretty much pick it up and play and not feel much of a difference. But first, let me talk a little bit about another game that I played, which is an idler crafting game I've been hard at grind, and that's Shop Titans. You heard me talk about in the past, so I do not want to go into too many details, but I did sink quite a few hours compared to previous month, and I've been making quite the progress. There's a lot of things that I could talk about this game, as I really enjoyed it, and I really feel like the whole progression loop is quite satisfying, and slowly grinding fits well with the short play sessions between bigger games. Honestly, it's the kind of game that stays with you longer after you think that you have finished it. Not many games of this kind of caliber really stick around, and to be honest, Shop Titans really started to grow on me. But that being said, let's move to something much more interesting. Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition. Last month I did play this game quite a bit, but I was not really sure about what I was thinking about it. I was having conflicting thoughts if I would like it, if I would stick around with the game, and if I should quit it. But this one really came as a surprise. I really went expecting clunky old school RPG, and it kinda delivered. The game doesn't really hold up when it comes to the gameplay mechanics, but I found myself really getting into it after investing more time in mods. And modding can be a hit or miss for this game, because despite the fact that you can really upgrade it to make it look like a brand new CRPG that just came out a couple of years, but you can really polish it a little bit by making the textures look better, maybe change a couple of things in gameplay and make it a lot more snappier, quicker. Like for example, use a mod to rest quicker, because why are we wasting few more extra seconds just sitting there doing nothing? Another one would be to play around with how much XP you get, because this is a completely grindy game and I never understood why it chose that route. There's many things I could talk about in a negative light, but I think that because I haven't finished the game and I'm far from it, I do think that this game has its own charm, and the storytelling and the role-playing possibilities really pulled me in. I'm still in Act 2 and it's clear that this is going to be a long haul, but it's one of those games where the journey matters more than the finish line. It's a slow burn, perfect for dipping in and out when I want this classic CRPG flavor. And to be honest, I haven't really dipped into the CRPG or the Western RPG or any other RPG in a very long time. So I'm looking still forward to continue the series and put an end to it, complete it, or at least beat it. But still, I think that I'm far from it. I'm talking from April about what I did in March, and I can tell you that I'm still in Act 2. It's a long game and I'm still enjoying it, despite that I'm making slow progress. I'm more than 60 hours in, and I don't think that I really got bored with the whole slow, repetitive gameplay, because the story is quite intriguing. Which it's hard to really pinpoint if I want to be able to like cap everything. I do not want to spoil it if you're planning to go head on. But all I can tell you is that this game is composed in different chapters and sections that tell different stories that pretty much be separated as different DLCs or anything of a sort. Pretty much Act 1 felt like it was the end of it, and I was like, oh yeah, I finished the game, because it does feel like it's quite a lot. It delivers a lot of content, a lot of things that you can do, and because of its slow nature, I do feel like it could be very well concluded. But I'm still in Act 2 and I still feel like I'm learning more about the game. And one thing I really enjoyed is that the game starts to open up after level 6 or so. I got my mount and I started feeling like my game is actually starting to pick up a little bit. My henchman is starting to be more useful in battle. She doesn't really just throw a couple of heals and one ability. She has a lot more buffs nowadays, and I feel like it's getting more and more interesting. So what I really think that this game is held back is by its grindy nature when it comes to leveling. So if the second game would be any different, I would hope that the grind aspect of leveling would be a little bit much more tweaked. But that being said, let's talk about the last game that I played this March, and that is Trine 2. After finishing Trine 1, I was so impressed by its gameplay mechanics. Despite playing it all over again after many years, I decided that I should jump straight and play Trine 2 on my Steam Deck. And honestly, it was a natural next step. Everything felt a little bit more refined this time around. The visuals are a little bit different, and despite the fact that there are much better this time around, I did feel like it was a lot more harder to spot collectibles. It can be a little bit of a hit or miss when it comes to that. The puzzles this time around, they were a little bit more creative. You had a couple of things that you could do, and the abilities that you had this time around really helped you to deliver some incredible time manipulation and slowdowns and stuff like that that I really enjoyed over the first one. And compared to the first one, it did feel that this world was more whimsical. The environments are gorgeous, and some of the later levels push the physics system in a fun and unexpected way. Not to mention that there's also a DLC that you could pick up right after you finish the main campaign that really is interesting, and it takes the game in a different direction. That said, this one's a bit longer and denser than the first game. So while I made solid progress, I'm not quite finished yet, and I'm still in April, By the time I record this one is April the 15th, and I'm still not done with the game. I finished the base game, but I'm still far from it because of its grindy nature. Looking back at March, one thing stands out: the sheer variety of games that I've dived into. From emotional story-driven experiences like Impostor Factory to long grindy sessions in Shop Titans, it's been a month of balancing quick completions and long-term commitments. What really hits home is how this month solidified the importance of focusing on what's in front of me and embracing the grind where it's needed. For games like Monster Hunter Wilds and Neverwinter Nights, it's clear that some titles requires time and patience, and that's okay. Some games are meant to be savored over time, while others are satisfying to knock out quickly, like q.u.q and Impostor Factory. The biggest takeaway here that managing a backlog doesn't always mean powering through every game as fast as possible. Sometimes it's about knowing when to jump into a short game for instant satisfaction and when to commit to something long term. But no matter how long or short the game is, the key is to keep making progress and enjoy the journey. March taught me to appreciate the balance of progress and persistence in managing my backlog. It's not about rushing through, it's about enjoying the process. So that's a wrap up of my March backlog update. It's been a month of mixed experiences, from quick wins to ongoing adventures, and I'm grateful for every game that kept me entertained and motivated. The key takeaway for me is that no matter where you are in your backlog journey, it's all about balancing progress with enjoyment. Sometimes we just get lost in the rush of finishing games, but remembering to enjoy the process is what keeps us coming back for more. If you've been working on your backlog too, I'd love to hear how March went for you. Which games did you tackle? What challenges did you face? Drop me a comment below and let's chat about it. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so that you don't miss every time I post something new regarding backlog tips or any other gaming related topics. My name is Vashral, thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe, take care, and happy gaming.